Good morning, everyone. 2020 is a massive year for Christian Aid. It's their 75th year, 75 years of seeking to challenge injustice around the world. Every year at this time of year, I always speak to you for Christian Aid Week. I always share with you something about the work that they're doing and try and encourage you to give, act and pray. As Christians, we believe that our lives are bound up together with those who we live with. And if Jesus said that our neighbour included our enemy, then how much more should it include the people who grow our food, the people who make the clothes that we wear, or the people that mine the minerals that go into the different devices that you're probably watching this on now. I was so grateful to Bethan, who decided to organise a Christian Aid Week quiz for us last week. It's fantastic that despite the pandemic going on, we were still able to come together and raise money for such a worthwhile cause. She wrote the quiz and she set it all up, and I'm pleased to say that we raised nearly £600 for Christian Aid as a result. Thanks so much to everyone who gave, and thanks so much to everyone who came along to the quiz. The theme for Christian Aid Week this year is the theme of climate crisis. We could argue about whether or not we as mankind have any impact on the climate or whether we've caused it. But I think the thing that we wouldn't argue on is whether or not the climate is in fact changing. Temperatures are rising, polar ice is melting. I think our actions continue specifically to be affected not by whether we agree or disagree on whether we're the cause of the crisis, but should be affected by whether or not we can make an impact on the changes that it's having. And I think it's clear that we can. A friend of mine once said these very wise things about the climate crisis and our response. He said, "It's a bit like we're driving along at speed along a straight road. Someone tells us that we're about to drive off a cliff edge. We may not believe them. We may not believe that there is a cliff coming. But the least that we would do is to slow down." And that's what I'm encouraging you to do this year, to slow down. As Christian Aid Week, I think we can slow down the things that may be having an impact on the climate. And we can also ramp up our response to the impact that it's having. If this pandemic of COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's that sometimes you have to act before a crisis occurs. Some people say that the climate isn't a crisis yet. The Welsh Government have named it a climate crisis because they recognise that even if it isn't an emergency now, it will be an emergency very, very soon. And if we leave it too long, we'll be unable to impact and make any difference. So how can you help? Well, firstly, you can do simple things in our own lifestyles. We can recycle more. We can use less plastic, use our cars less often, and reduce our energy usage. Many of these things I know we're all doing at the moment because we're forced to, and I'd really encourage you to continue in those things once we're out of the current situation. We can also pray for our governments and leaders who have a major impact on these issues. I believe that it's only with the impact of governments and the action of governments that we will be able to see real change. We've just watched a video which sets out just one example of the work of Christian Aid. Thanks to your donations, Christian Aid has been able to support a local community in Kenya to build a dam. When the droughts hit, the dam enables water to still be available to provide just life's basic essentials to the local people. And it also assists in supporting the local economy. But the video also showed the devastating impact that climate change is having on the people of Kenya. 2 years of drought has meant that even with the dam that they currently have, they are unable to store up the water that is required. And therefore that community is looking to expand their dam so that in the future they will be better able and better equipped to fight the challenge of drought and to still be able to have access to clean water. the video is a great example of by where you have to act before the emergency. It's only if the dam is in place during the heavy rains that when the drought comes, water can still be available. The final thing I want to share with you is something I recently read from a book by C.S. Lewis. I was really challenged by these words. I think it's a real challenge to ever be able to put it into practice, but I hope that you'll be encouraged by me sharing it with you. He's speaking in the book about how some people say that charity ought not to be necessary because we ought to live in a society where giving to the poor and helping the poorest amongst us would just happen naturally, and that there would be no need to give to any particular organisations. He goes on to say that if anyone thinks that as a consequence we can stop giving in the meantime, before that society is in place, then he has parted company with all Christian morality. He goes on to say these words, which is what I found so challenging. He's talking about, in answer to the question, how much should I give? And he responds with this: I do not believe that one can settle on how much we ought to give. I'm afraid the only safe rule is to give more than we can spare. In other words, if our expenditure on comforts, luxuries, amusements, etc. is up to the standard common among those with the same income as our own, we are probably giving away too little. If our charities do not at all pinch or hamper us, I should say they are too small. I found that really challenging, particularly at the time as this, when many of our own livelihoods are at risk. And I understand that for people watching this, there may be some of you who have sadly lost jobs. There may be people who don't know where their income is going to come from. There may be people wondering whether their entire profession is no longer going to be in existence after all of this. And that's why C.S. Lewis, I think, is right to say that we can't say a figure on how much you should give. But I'm really challenged by the idea that we should give something that is costly to us. It strikes me that if we give away only the leftovers, we're not really giving much away. If we give away simply the food that would otherwise have gone to waste, is that really charitable giving? Because God isn't interested in how much we give, I don't think. I believe that God is interested in our hearts and in the heart of the giver. So my challenge to you at this time is give up something so that others don't have to go without. Act when you don't really have enough time and when you're tired and busy. Still act to challenge injustice. And pray. Invest time, even though it's precious. Invest it in God and spending time with Him, that He would challenge us and change us and our leaders, and that we would see a powerful movement of God to address injustice in our world. Thanks so much for all of the efforts, all of the time, and all of the energy that you've put into supporting the work of Christian Aid over so many years. Some of you have been supported for decades and decades, and I thank you for that work. But I encourage you that even at this time of the COVID pandemic, now is the time to continue to step up our actions for some of the world's poorest people and to slow down the impact that we may be having on climate change. You're able to still give by using the link which will be here, and also if you can you can go to the Christian Aid website where you can give online also. Thanks very much for listening.